Hello everybody, welcome back to another reading. Today we're taking a look at the case of Benjamin Lund from Killeen, Texas, who was 19 years old on the day he disappeared, which was June 16th of 2005. Late afternoon on that day he went to a H-E-B grocery store in Harker Heights, where he withdrew just under $100 from his bank accounts. Later that day, he went to a party at Wood Street, also in Killeen, and he left with a friend to go buy some drugs. Now, the friend came back alone, and I found very little information about this case from just a quick search that I did, so I have no idea if the friend has been questioned or if the friend had any type of issue with him. I imagine that he has been questioned, but I just don't have that information. Anyway, the car that he was driving was found on July 7th in the 900th block of Wood Street, which is close to where he lived, because I believe he was on the 1700th block, if I remember correctly. Inside the car there were personal items found, but no sign of Benjamin or where he may have gone, and that is pretty much all we know. Now, Benjamin did struggle with drugs and alcohol, because I believe he was also sent to a rehabilitation center for alcohol and drugs, and as he left the party to go buy drugs, he wasn't quite done with those yet, done kicking off. I do believe he did have a job, so it's not quite like he was really struggling for money or some other issue may have been playing in the background, at least not that we know of. Although he did have a call with his mother where they, at least it's for some duration of time, argued about finances. And even though his mother said that he sounded different, he didn't say anything about anything being wrong. So she had no clue why he would disappear or if anybody was after him. So that is all we know, at least as far as I could quickly find out. That's all we know. We are going to take a look at this case using the tarot, and we're going to start off with the Urban Tarot, which is this one with this type of imagery right here, the modern one, which always gives interesting insight. And for further questions we move on to the Tarot Mucha, which is this one. As per usual, I'm just going to start shuffling the deck. As soon as we have enough cards on the table to look at, I'll stop, and then we can take a look at what we found. So without much further ado, let's get started. Okay, so we got a whole bunch from here. They came out flying pretty quickly again, like a few readings ago. We're starting off here over here at the top left with the Two of Swords, the Queen of Wands, and the Chariots. Now, for some reason, this reminds me of the phone call that I was talking about that he had with his mother, because the Queen of Wands here is sitting there in front of a very official looking building with a briefcase, and she's looking pretty stern, as well as her pet, what is this, cheetah, I think. She seems to be fairly standoffish. Queen of Wands is normally somebody who is very fiery. As you can see, this one is called Public Defender down there at the bottom. And I think this Two of Swords over here, even though it says at the bottom that this is the card of peace, if you look at the card itself, it's a bench sitting in an enclosed area with a fairly barbed wire fence around it. So I don't know how peaceful this is. It's more of a truce situation than a peace situation. And since swords are communication and verbal altercations maybe, or just exchanges, doesn't always have to be an altercation. I feel like this is the discussion that they had over the phone, followed by the Chariot in reverse. Now, Chariot is often movement, things moving, shaking, progressing, but in this case it is in a standstill mode. So after this discussion, probably after the phone call with the mom, he felt that he was stuck, or at least he may have hoped for something better, because you can see the sun in the background of the two swords. Like maybe he hoped during that communication to get a better result, and it turned out to not be what he wanted, so he felt like he was stuck there. Maybe he wanted the money for something, or I don't really know if he asked for money. I just know that the call was about finances, so maybe he was like, maybe she has a good idea, because of course the Queen of Wands is somebody who is very actionable. She may also have a good suggestion, may know a few actions that he could take in order to better his situation, but it was not the result he was hoping for, it looks like. Then we have the card called the Aeon, which in this deck is Judgment, followed by the Six of Cups and the Hierophant in reverse. Okay, so let's grab these three then. So we have here the Judgment in reverse, so I feel like that is them judging themselves, or perhaps his mother, other people around them, because they feel like they may have been done wrong by. Because if you look over here as well, you got the Hierophant over here, which is definitely an influential person in your life. It's somebody who is basically in charge of some type of community. It could be a pastor, it could be the principal of a school, somebody that they look up to, has a higher position of power in their life, and it's in reverse. So either this is somebody who looks down on them, because judgment can also in this case refer to somebody else's judgment, not only your own. But we have here the pleasure card. It says so at the bottom, the Six of Cups. Six of Cups is normally a nostalgic card, like having a history with somebody. Could also just mean feeling good about something. This might be a reference to how they feel after using alcohol and drugs. Like this is something that they feel like they need in order to feel good, and they may feel judged that they are that way, particularly by people whom they look up to, which is what the Hierophant seems to be referring to. So perhaps after this conversation they felt certain judgments being laid upon them over the things that they do, which they probably feel are things that they need to do in order to feel some type of pleasure, because obviously I'm not any type of healthcare professional or anything like that, but I have heard that for some people drug use is just to get their emotions up to a level which other people would consider normal. So for some people drugs and alcohol are needed to just feel something, basically. So this seems to be referencing that, like they needed this in order to feel good, but they feel judged by other people that they have to use these things. So after this phone conversation, he was not feeling very good about that. Next we have the Five of Pentacles, which says worry, and over there you can see in the picture that it's like a medical worry, but it can also just very plainly mean financial distress, having certain needs that need to be filled with resources, perhaps just money, not being able to do that. And then we have here the Four of Cups, having no choices. The card itself is called luxury, but I'm guessing this is really like being hard up financially, because it looks as though he doesn't have the luxury and he's worried about that. We do have here an Eight of Pentacles though, which is prudence, says here at the bottom, which also means focus. Normally the Eight of Pentacles is working really hard on something, focusing on something. Could be that they were trying to get a job done, or maybe working on a promotion or something along those lines. So because they didn't have the resources that they needed for certain things, they decided to focus on things, work hard at something that may lead them to more resources in the future. So he was making a plan, maybe a plan for betterment, maybe a plan for taking care of his own financial situation after he felt like he was being abandoned by everybody else. The Seven of Wands in reverse is normally people coming for your position because they are jealous of you, but in this case in reverse, and I feel like this is more falling from grace. Over here we have the Three of Swords and the Wheel of Fortune, so I'm going to grab these three because they are definitely connected. Like I said, the Seven of Wands looks like a fall from grace. Three of Swords is often depicted with three swords piercing a heart, and this might be some type of heartbreak, or might be somebody interrupting some type of flow between him and another person, or just disruptive energy, people talking bad about him maybe. That might have led to this falling from grace over here, but it also kind of feels like even though over here he's focusing very hard on working on things to better himself, perhaps this looks like it's being undermined by somebody, and they end up changing their fates regardless. like the idea that they had was taken over by somebody else tempting him into falling from grace. So if he had at that moment decided, you know what, I'm going to focus on getting and staying clean, because he had been in the rehabilitation center at least once, I'm pretty sure he was still focusing on what the positive result of that would be. He needed to be clean, I guess, in order for his plan to work, and somebody ended up tempting him to come back to the dark side, so to speak, because as you can see, this looks like there's even a razor blade on the edge. Now, some people might be very sensitive to that, but this really looks like drawing somebody back down into a dark hole, because you can see that all the blood and everything is going to the drain. The swords are pointing there as well, so this is really going down the drain, helped by somebody else. And then his fortune changed for the worse, because this card is very dark. This is a fairground, but it looks like everything's closed and there's lightning, thunder. It looks very ominous. So this is not a fun place to be. So this does not look like a positive change of fortune. So this looks like what led up to the event at the party where he left with his friend to go get drugs. Now let's see if we can find out anything about what happened then. At that point, what happened next that made him disappear. Page of Cups and the Two of Pentacles. Okay, so Two of Pentacles normally like trying to balance your finances, perhaps also making new plans for finances, but it looks like those plans were thwarted. Page of Cups is a surprise. Something comes out unexpectedly, and in this case it's a fairly sudden change, and it's not a positive one. So this seems to be pointing towards him having gone with a friend to that place to buy drugs, and something popped up that was definitely not expected. This might look like a mugging. I think this is like people trying to take his money and perhaps not provide him with the drugs that he sought. So this looks like he was being mugged, or at least somebody surprised him. It could be, because it's a surprise, might even be the friend themselves. I don't want to like lay judgment or anybody like that, but it's more like, I imagine if you go and buy something illegal, you can kind of expect that there might be some trouble there. But this is really an emotional surprise here. So if you were to suddenly be jumped by a couple of thugs who were initially pretending to be selling drugs, you'd be like, oh, of course this is happening. Of course it would be a surprise. But this seems more of a surprise than that, like something he really didn't see coming. That's why I'm thinking somebody whom he was not expecting to do this, to perhaps rob him, did it anyway. And that has led to some very stormy waters, because both of these cards have very stormy seas in the background. You can see the boats back there struggling to stay on top of the waves, and over here the waves are hitting the rocks and stuff like that. Everything, including the page themselves, is also being pelted with water. So that seems like an unexpected negative event happened there that messed with his goals and his finances. So potentially a robbery. What next? This one. This is the King of Wands. Alright, so this is somebody who has quite a bit of money or wealth, perhaps to their name, and who may also command some respect in that regard. So this is somebody who has a lot of money, perhaps. Whether legally or otherwise doesn't really say. But they appear to be pointing towards somebody who is in that situation. I don't expect that to be Benjamin, because I believe he was not doing too well financially, and he had less than $100 on him. But perhaps he was being viewed as this King of Wands, like maybe somebody had said that he had a lot of money and therefore he was being robbed or something. Let's see what else we can find. Okay, so we got the Fool here. This seems like he walked into the situation not expecting any of this, which of course makes sense because it was a big surprise. So this looks like he was being led into it by somebody. Somebody trapped him. And then what's... Could also just mean the realization that he was foolish in that moment. Like, oh, they thought that... It could also be the person who thought that he was loaded, that was being fooled, led into it, so that was not a positive exchange either. We have here the Three of Wands, which is no way to go because it's in reverse. Normally you want to make plans, you want to look for a way to another location, perhaps even a way out of your current situation, but there was no such way offered. So he's already in trouble, and then he is no longer able to leave, at least not in the same timely manner that he wanted to leave. What else can we find? Are you going? Yeah, okay. For a moment I wasn't sure if he wanted to drop or not, but we have here, this looks like another judgment card. All right. So we got 2 judgment cards in this one reading, which is interesting because we had that one already underneath here, the Aeon right there. So more judgments. I don't know whose judgment this is, but I feel like this might be them feeling like, oh, this is where my bad habits are catching up to me because look at this situation, I can't leave. I have been fooled into this. They think I got a lot of money, but apparently I don't, at least not as much as they were expecting perhaps. In any case, they feel trapped, and as though this is all a result of his bad decisions beforehand that he's currently being judged for. Can we learn about this? Because he didn't just go home after that. We have the Empress in reverse. We do also have the Nine of Cups. Now the Nine of Cups spun a little bit on the table, so it could be that it's supposed to be in reverse, but I think because it landed like this that it is supposed to be upright. So the Empress in any case is in reverse, so that's somebody not taking good care of other people, basically ignoring basic needs, etc. Perhaps dropping the ball. Maybe they tried to contact somebody in that situation and they let them down. Normally the Nine of Cups is like a self-confidence thing, like you're feeling perfectly peaceful and able to take on the world, etc. like that. But in this situation, I don't think that was necessarily the case because so far it looks as though he's not doing great. But it may be an attempt to talk his way out of this because the Cups are also an emotion thing. He may have made an emotional appeal. It may have been very convincing perhaps as well, because who knows, he may have been, I don't really know exactly anything about him necessarily, but he may have been really good at talking his way out of situations, and perhaps he felt like he could do that again in this case, like, okay guys, just calm down, it's fine, we've lost 1 cup over here, but there's still plenty of cups behind me as you can see, and we'll do okay. But he didn't really feel supported, perhaps that whomever he was making this appeal to is represented by the Empress in reverse, so they were not on board for that conversation and decided to continue with their plan regardless, or at least carry out the action that they had decided on. So what's next? What's next is the Five of Cups in reverse. So that is unable to let things go. Yeah, that kind of references what I just said. This Empress over here is just unwilling to let go whatever it is that they feel like they've been slighted with. And then we have here Justice in reverse. So this is them taking an unjust action as a result of this whole situation. So this really looks like he was tricked into coming into a situation over here. There had been lies told either to a King of Pentacles, or he was viewed as the King of Pentacles, like the guy with the money, but that turned out not to be the fact because, or the case, because he doesn't have that much. And so there was a trapped situation for him. He tried to get out of it, but they were like, no, that's not going to happen. And then they went and did something very unjust, because justice is in reverse here. So that'll be whatever happened to him that made him disappear. Doesn't really say much else about where he may be or what happened next. But it looks like he walked into a situation that he could not get out of. Now, will we find him again? Because he has so far not been found. Let's see if we can get anything about that. Is he going to reappear? Either dead or alive, because you never know. A couple of cards flipped there. Let's see what we have. Four of Pentacles and Eight of Pentacles again. So working hard on something and being very focused as well. That's very strange. Now, I don't think that there was any reasons for him to go away. Like, I don't think he purposely left the life that he used to lead behind. I don't think that he was the person to not be in contact with his family. I'm pretty sure I read something about that, like he wouldn't go rogue for so long, although him not calling his mother for a couple of days, she chalked down to him still being mad about the argument that they had over the phone. There was that, but he wouldn't have stayed mad for long, or in any case he wouldn't have stayed out of contact for long. But we do here have a 4 of Pentacles and an 8 of Pentacles. Like I said, like trying to balance things out, balance your finances, focusing very hard on things. This could be from the perspective of whoever did something to Benjamin. Doesn't have to be Benjamin himself. It wouldn't surprise me too much if this were Benjamin, however, suddenly deciding, you know what, this life is crazy, I can't have this happen to me again, and I'm going to figure things out for myself. I'm going to go and do my own version of rehab or a pilgrimage or something along those lines to focus on things that I dropped the ball on earlier, because he did have that here as well. Underneath here is another 8 of Pentacles, so we have 2 8s of Pentacles here. Doubly focused. So it's either whomever attacked him thinking about being very careful not to let their own cards show and show that he was involved in this and that they are the reason why Benjamin disappeared, or it's Benjamin actually making the decision to work on themselves and perhaps also walk away, because the 8 is also, it's a pentacle in this case, but also the 8 of Cups is a walking away from situation, and the 8s are a little bit more like I need to step out of a previous situation and move on to the next. And in this case he could have walked away in order to focus on himself a little harder, to remove himself perhaps from the situation that he was in that was making him make all these bad decisions. Could be that he actually managed to do something, or at least get away from there, and then decided that he needed to change. Don't know. Let's get a few more cards in to see if we can get any more clarification on that. Really, it could also mean, if you're looking for if we're going to find him again, that somebody is working very hard to try and get information above ground. It could mean all sorts of things, but I just find it kind of vague, those 2 cards on the end there, so I'm going to draw a couple more cards for clarification to see what we can find. Oh, there we go, 2 of them dropped immediately. So let's see what we have here then. Death, okay, that's like an ending thing, and then there's the 9 of Swords. All right, so I don't think that the 2 cards down here are in reference to anybody trying to solve the case, looking at these 2 cards, because death is like an end of a situation, end of a chapter, perhaps the start of a new chapter, followed by the 9 of Swords, which says the bottom cruelty. I think it's also anxiety, could also mean just worrying in general. So I think this might be the person, the perpetrator, because it's the end of perhaps an innocent era, and now they're very much worried that people are going to find out about it. So that's interesting. So this isn't necessarily Benjamin. This might be the person who is behind all this, the reason for it. So let's see if we can find anything else. So whomever did something, they're worried about it. Will they also come forward at some point, or will they be found out? I think Benjamin's no longer with us, but we need to figure out if we can actually find him at some point, if we're gonna solve the case at some point. That one. 9 of Wands. Okay, so this person might be somebody who is fairly popular within their circles and may also have a tendency to attract attention. 9 of Wands is often a very actionable person, tends to be out there doing stuff, probably fairly extroverted, a lot of energy. I'm trying to get the card off the table. There we go. And as you can see, the card itself is called Rock Star, so this might be somebody who is in the public eye, which may be a reason why he is so worried over here, because perhaps beforehand he was not expecting any of this to happen, first of all. But they did have a part to play in it, and now they're being quiet, even though they can't really get away from the crowd, so to speak, because he tends to be the life of the party, and people will seek him out and can't really give him a moment to himself like that. So he may be a rock star in a certain group of friends. All right. last 3, I think. Oh, these are a lot, actually. This isn't 3. This is more like 4 or 5. Okay, let's take a look at them all. We have the 3 of Pentacles in reverse. So this is somebody that they used to work with or work against. And this might be working against them, their rock star status. So I think their job might also be suffering from this as well. We have the Therapist, Queen of Cups in reverse. So there might be a female in their life or somebody with feminine energy, a Queen of Cups energy, who is either onto him because of her looking, the way they're looking at them. Look at that piercing gaze over there. So this looks like somebody whom is fairly wise. I don't want to say empathic because a lot of people describe themselves as empathic these days, and it's not quite the word I'm looking for. But this looks like somebody who may be keeping an eye on them and either is feeding them information on how to stay safe, or they are aware that there's something wrong with them. And I think it's the latter rather than the former, so that they are aware that there is something up with our rock star person over here who may be working against them as well. The Therapist might be. We have here the 8 of Wands in reverse, so things have definitely slowed down for them. They may have had some plans in the past for things to do in the future, but they have slowed down considerably. They may have stopped following dreams. They may have stopped going to school or something along those lines, or trying to pursue other career paths. So you might be looking at somebody who is fairly popular, but also kind of stuck, because he's not really able to do anything, can't move forward or backwards. Somebody might be onto him and they're not moving anywhere. And we have here the Prince of Cups in reverse. So this is somebody who has a lot of negative energy about themselves, perhaps also towards others, maybe manipulative in a way, because the Prince of Cups is somebody who is fairly well aware of their emotions. But since in reverse, it might also mean manipulation. So they could be very easily manipulating people into talking or not talking, or just thinking the way that they want them to think and stuff like that. So this might be somebody who's really good at convincing people to see things their way. As you can see, this is a director or filmmaker, it says there at the bottom, or at the top rather, because I'm holding it upside down. Let me put it the right way up. There you go. Filmmaker there at the bottom. So this might be somebody who is good at directing, and he is trying to direct people away from his past, I think. So I don't think that that points towards them coming forward with new information soon. If this Queen of Cups over here figures it out at some point, they may out them, because they're currently, I guess, behaving in such a way that this Queen of Cups does not believe is normal, and they are working very hard to keep people off their track, but that's also stopping their life right here. So they're stuck. They're good at manipulating the people around them. They worry a lot, and they can't move forward, and they're under the scrutiny of the Therapists. So if the Therapist can crack the code, then he might be outed. And if not, then we might be stuck in this situation of not knowing where Benjamin is for a long time. But that is what I'm seeing for the case. I hope you found that interesting. Make sure to leave a comment and a like. That really helps the channel along. Also, feel free to share these videos, obviously, if you know people who might be interested in watching them. In any case, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. And bye-bye for now.